Once upon a time in the busy town of Oja, the girls were like stars, shining, bold, and always dressed like royalty. They walked like queens and talked like movie stars. Most of them had 2 or 3 boyfriends. To them, beauty was business. And to look rich, you needed money. One boyfriend was never enough. But among all these girls, one stood out. EA. She was like a rainbow after the rain. Her beauty made people stop and stare. Her skin glowed like the early morning sun. Her eyes sparkled like the stars in a clear sky, and her smile, it could melt even the hardest heart. When EA walked, it was like music. Her hips moved with rhythm. She didn't rush. She glided like a dancer dancing to her own sweet song. Men turned to look at her once, twice, sometimes even 3 times. EA had a boyfriend. His name was Kalo. Now, Kalo was not one of the rich men of Oja. He didn't wear gold chains or drive big cars. But he was a good man. Kind, loyal, and hardworking. He ran a small bar where people came after work to relax, laugh, and drink away their worries. Kalo loved EA with all his heart. He would give her the last piece of meat in his soup. He tried everything to make her smile. They lived in a small house behind the bar. It wasn't fancy, but it was home. Sometimes at night, EA would help Kalo in the bar. Her beauty brought more people in. Men came to drink, but stayed for her smile. Still, there was something that made Kalo sad. EA's hunger for expensive things. She wanted more. More clothes, more shoes, more wigs, more bags. She looked at the other girls and sighed. "Kalo," she would say, "look at me. Don't I deserve better? Why can't you buy me what they have?" Kalo would sigh and hold her hand. "EA," he'd whisper, "I'll get those things for you one day. Just be patient." But in his heart, he knew the truth. He wasn't rich. The bar barely made enough. Yet he still tried. Because he loved her. But EA's heart, it was restless. The hunger inside her kept growing. And that's when the storm began. EA had a friend, Sammy. Everyone in town knew her. Sammy was beauty in a different form. She was tall, slim, with golden brown skin that gleamed like polished bronze. Her hair was long and smooth, flowing like a black waterfall. Sammy always had the latest wigs, the prettiest shoes, dresses that looked like they came from the big city. She lived like a queen. Her family was rich, and when they weren't giving her what she wanted, men were lining up to give her gifts. She didn't beg. She snapped her fingers, and the world answered. EA visited Sammy often. Not just because they were friends, but because Sammy's life was what EA dreamed of. Sammy's room looked like a treasure chest. Colorful wigs, shiny earrings, bags in every color, and shoes that sparkled like tiny stars. One sunny afternoon, EA sat on Sammy's soft bed. Her eyes were fixed on a golden wig that lay on the table. She sighed, long and heavy. "Sammy," EA spoke softly, her voice shaking. "I don't know what to do. I want wigs like that. Beautiful clothes, jewelry that shines, but Kalo, he can't buy them. I don't even know if he wants to try." Sammy raised an eyebrow. Her sharp eyes scanned EA from head to toe. "EA," she said, "you're too beautiful to suffer like this. You're not meant for this poor life. Look at you. You deserve to live like a queen, not like someone begging for scraps." EA's heart trembled. She looked down. "But I love Kalo," she said. "He's good to me. I can't cheat on him. I can't do that." Sammy chuckled softly, shaking her head. "Love?" she said. "Love doesn't buy wigs. Love doesn't put food on the table. EA, open your eyes. Almost every girl in Oja has more than one man. Why should you be the only one suffering?" EA didn't answer. Her chest felt tight. Her head was spinning with questions. Was Sammy right? Sammy stood up and walked to her wardrobe. She pulled out the golden wig, a few fancy dresses, and a sparkling handbag. She placed them in EA's hands. "Take these," Sammy said. "They're yours. Don't return them. But think about what I said. You can't live like this forever. EA's face lit up. Thank you, she whispered, her voice full of emotion, but deep inside her heart felt strange, like something was missing. She walked home with the gifts in her hands, but her mind was heavy. Sammy's words danced in her head like whispers in the wind, planting seeds that would soon grow into something dark. Days turned into nights. EA wore the golden wig. The dresses hugged her body perfectly. She looked like one of the big city girls. But the hunger in her heart didn't stop. The gifts made her smile, but only for a moment. She started to look at the other girls in Oya. Girls dripping in gold. Girls with bags that shined like treasure. EA wanted what they had, and slowly her heart began to change. The girls of Oja looked like treasures, walking, cloaked in jewels, shining with perfume, and walking like queens. EA watched them from a distance, her heart beating fast. She wanted that life. She wanted to be admired, spoiled, and worshipped like royalty. The gifts Sammy had given her felt like tiny drops of water in a desert. But her thirst, it was growing. One evening, EA returned to Sammy's house. Her feet dragged, but her mind was firm. She had made her choice. Sammy sat on her soft bed, painting her nails the color of red roses. EA stood in the doorway, quiet for a moment, then she said in a low voice, "Sammy, I'm ready." Sammy looked up and smiled, her face glowing like sunshine after a storm. "I knew you'd come around," she said, placing the nail polish aside. "Sit down, EA. Let me tell you about Chief Okafo." Her voice was smooth, every word like honey. Chief Okafo is one of the richest men in Oja. He owns lands, cars, businesses. Money doesn't end in his house, and when he chooses a woman, he treats her like a queen. She never lacks anything. EA's eyes widened. "But what does he want from me?" she asked, her voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. Sammy chuckled. "What do you think he wants? He wants your time, your beauty, that's all, and he's ready to pay very well for it." The room became quiet. The words floated like a heavy cloud in the air. EA swallowed hard, her heart beat loud in her ears, but the picture Sammy painted was too sweet to ignore. "Okay," EA whispered. Sammy's eyes sparkled. She moved fast. The next day she dressed EA in a beautiful gown and took her to meet Chief Okafo. The chief was power in human form. When he entered a room, the air changed. His clothes were sharp, his gold jewelry sparkled like stars, and his smile was smooth, like melted butter on hot bread. He looked at EA like she was a prize on a golden plate. "You're beautiful," Chief Okafo said, "and you deserve the best. Stay with me and I'll give you anything you want. Gold, trips, dresses, even your dreams." EA nodded slowly. Her mind was dancing with images of riches, shiny shoes, and a life of no worries. That night was the beginning. EA began sneaking out of the small house she shared with Kalo. While he stayed behind the bar, wiping glasses and counting coins, EA walked into Chief Okafo's world, and he spoiled her. He gave her golden necklaces, bracelets that glittered like water in the sun, and dresses that hugged her body like silk. They ate at expensive restaurants where the food was soft, rich, and creamy. EA felt like a real queen, but back home, Kalo waited. Each night his heart felt heavier. EA stopped helping at the bar. She barely looked at him. Her laughter was gone. Her love, which once burned bright, was now fading like a dying flame. Kalo didn't know the full story, but his heart whispered that something was wrong. EA had changed, and she didn't see the trap ahead. She was walking deeper into a forest with no way out, chasing a light that wasn't real. One night, as they ate dinner in silence, Kalo looked at her. "EA," he said softly, "where do you go? You're not the same anymore." EA didn't meet his eyes. "I've just been visiting Sammy," she said, her voice flat. But Kalo knew she was lying. Each night she left the house, and each night he stayed awake, his heart aching. He felt like a man holding onto a rope that was slipping from his hands. And he knew, if he didn't act, he'd lose her forever. One night, the moon was bright like a silver eye in the sky. Kalo waited in the shadows. He stayed quiet, his breath slow, his heart beating like a drum. Ie stepped out of the house, wearing a beautiful gown. She didn't know Kalo was behind her. She walked fast through the narrow streets of Oja. Kalo followed silently. Then she stopped in front of a grand mansion. Its gates opened by themselves like magic. She stepped in. Kalo watched as the lights of the house swallowed her whole. He didn't need to see more. His heart broke. When EA came back home that night, Kalo was sitting on the floor waiting. His eyes were red. His face was heavy with sadness. "EA," he said, his voice trembling. "Why are you doing this to me? I gave you everything I had. I loved you." EA stood there, her face hard like stone. Her voice came out sharp like a knife. "What do you have to give me, Kalo? Chief Okafo treats me like a queen. He gives me what you never could." The night was quiet, but Kalo's heart was screaming. That night, sleep refused to visit him. He lay on his mat, staring at the roof. Her words echoed in his mind like thunder. "What do you have to give me, Kalo? Chief Okafo treats me like a queen." Each word stabbed his chest. His teeth clenched. His hands formed fists. Fire rose in his chest. "EA," he whispered, his voice shaking with pain and anger. "You will regret ever knowing me. You played with my heart, and now you will pay." Days passed slowly, but Kalo's anger only grew stronger. His love for EA, once soft and sweet, had turned into something cold, sharp, and bitter. He no longer wanted her to simply leave. He wanted her to feel the same pain she had poured into his heart. The thought of her laughing in Chief Okafo's arms, wearing the gifts she once begged him for, made Kalo's chest burn. He could see her smile, hear her laugh, and every image stabbed him like a blade. One night, Kalo sat in the dark. An idea began to form in his mind. His face turned hard, and his heart no longer beat with love, but with revenge. "She thinks she's better than me," he whispered to himself. "Let her see what these hands can do." Kalo began moving like a shadow. Quiet, but determined. In his small kitchen, he started gathering ingredients. Pots clanked softly. Spices were measured with care. Fire crackled gently in the corner. His hands worked with the patience of a hunter. This wasn't just any meal. This was a dish EA would never forget. As the sun rose over Oja, its golden light touched the roof of Kalo's house. Inside, he stood before his cooking table. Everything was ready. He looked at the food and smiled, a dark smile that didn't reach his eyes. "EA," he whispered into the morning air, "this will be your last supper." The town was peaceful. Birds sang, children played, and the market slowly woke up. But inside Kalo's house, a storm was brewing, a quiet, dangerous storm. A few days later, Kalo stood outside his home. He saw EA walking past, her steps light, her chin high, her dress blowing in the wind. She looked like a queen, at least in her mind. "EA," he called gently, forcing a small smile. She stopped, one hand on her hip, her eyes sharp. "What do you want, Kalo?" she asked with coldness. "I just want us to share one last meal," he said, his voice soft. "No fights, no tears, just you and me, like old times." EA raised her eyebrows, smirking. "One last dinner?" she said, her voice full of mockery. "Fine, I'll come, just don't waste my time." That evening, Kalo's house looked different. The small table was set with care. Plates shone under the light of flickering candles. The air smelled of rich spices and slow-cooked stew. Everything looked peaceful on the outside, but inside Kalo, rage still burned like firewood on hot coals. EA walked in, dressed in one of Chief Okafo's gowns. The fabric shimmered like gold under the candlelight. Her makeup was perfect, her lips red, her steps full of pride. "Humph," she said, glancing around the room. "You're trying so hard, Kalo." He didn't answer. He simply pulled out a chair for her and smiled. "Please sit." EA sat gracefully, crossing her legs, eyes fixed on her reflection in the window. She barely noticed how strangely quiet. Kalo poured her a drink. His hand didn't shake. "Let's toast," he said. "To old times." EA took the drink without a second thought. She was too busy admiring her glittering dress to notice the storm in Kalo's eyes. He stood, still watching her. His face was blank, his voice calm. "Drink up," he said. "Tonight is special." What EA didn't know was that the drink wasn't just sweet. Kalo had poisoned it. His plan had taken days. His heart had turned hard. Now all that was left was to let the poison speak for him. EA sipped again. The drink slid down her throat easily. But then something shifted. Her head felt heavy, her arms weak, her vision blurred like fog. She blinked again. And again. "Kalo," she whispered. "What's happening?" Kalo stepped closer, his tall shadow stretching across the floor. "You laughed at my love," he said, his tone like ice. "You threw away my heart. You made a fool out of me. And now, you'll see what pain really feels like." EA tried to move, but her limbs refused to obey. Her hands shook but couldn't lift. Her legs froze. Her voice vanished. Panic filled her wide eyes. Kalo walked to the corner of the room. There, his tools waited for him. A sharp knife, a heavy cutlass, a small axe. He picked them up, one by one. The room fell silent. Only the bubbling pot in the kitchen spoke. "You thought you could cheat, lie, and leave," Kalo said. "But tonight you'll pay for every single tear you made me shed." He took slow steps toward her. EA's eyes followed him. She shook her head weakly, her body screaming but unable to fight. Kalo raised the knife, and with no mercy, no hesitation, he began to cut. He moved slowly, as if punishing her with every slice. Her screams didn't come. She couldn't speak. The poison held her still. To the outside world, Oja remained quiet. But inside that small house behind the bar, horror was unfolding. Blood dripped onto the floor like spilled wine. The candles kept flickering, and Kalo, the man once known for his kindness, had become something else. Something dark. Something deadly. The knife moved like it had no mercy. The cutlass landed with cold precision. The small axe struck where it had to. Blood stained the floor. The sweet smell of spices turned bitter. Kalo moved slowly, calm, controlled. Every slice was not just revenge, it was release. With each cut, he emptied the pain from his chest. EA's presence faded from the room. Her once beautiful face, her golden skin, her proud eyes, gone. What remained were pieces, scattered like broken dreams on a cold floor. The pot in the kitchen kept bubbling, its soft sound the only witness to the horror that had taken place. By the time Kalo was finished, night had swallowed Oja, and the man who once loved EA stood alone, lost in silence and shadow. The next morning, Kalo wore a strange peace. At his bar, the soup from the night before simmered gently. Its rich smell drifted into the air, inviting, warm, comforting. That morning, Kalo called a few close friends. "Come," he said with a smile stretched across his face like old leather. "I've made something special." His friends came in, laughter. They greeted him with handshakes and jokes, their spirits high. They didn't know what storm had passed through that house. The soup was served, steaming hot. Its aroma made mouths water. One by one, they tasted it. Their faces lit up with joy. "Kalo," one said, licking his lips. "This is the best soup I've ever tasted." Another nodded quickly, spoon already deep in the bowl. "You've done magic here. What's in this?" "It's rich, tender." Kalo said nothing. He just watched them eat. His face was calm, but inside, hollow, cold, still. His friends emptied their bowls and asked for more. Kalo, "You must teach us this recipe." One man laughed. "This is the kind of soup people remember forever." But Kalo didn't laugh. He didn't smile. His eyes, once warm, now held shadows. No one noticed. They were too full of meat, too busy enjoying what should never have been made. After the meal, Kalo stood up. He left the bar without a word. He didn't come back. That night, Kalo disappeared from Oya Town. Vanished. Gone like the last breath of someone dying. He left behind silence and a terrible secret. Days passed, and people began to whisper, "Where is EA?" Her friends knocked on her door. They called her name in the streets. They searched the market, but she was gone. No trace, not even a note. "She would never leave without telling us," one woman said. Then, the smell began. It crept out of Kalo's house slowly, like a secret that didn't want to stay hidden. It grew stronger each day. It wrapped itself around the homes nearby. It became unbearable. A group of townspeople gathered, curious, afraid. They pushed open Kalo's kitchen door. What they saw froze them in place. EA's remains lay scattered across the floor, bones, blood, and pieces of her once beautiful self. It looked like a nightmare carved into reality, a broken puzzle of flesh and death. The air was heavy. The walls felt like they were whispering the truth. On the table, they found a note. Kalo's handwriting, shaky but clear. "To the people of Oja, EA betrayed my love. For that, she paid the price. Greed and betrayal have no place here. Let this be a lesson to you all." Kalo screams filled the house. Some people ran out holding their mouths. Others collapsed in shock. Fear and disgust spread faster than fire. The tale of what had happened reached every corner of Oja before sunset. "What kind of man could do this?" they cried. "How could he serve her to us?" The bar where they had eaten became a place of horror. The soup that had brought joy now filled their stomachs with sickness. Oja was no longer the same. The lively laughter faded. The streets grew quiet. Kalo's name became a curse. His act had left a scar on the town that would never heal. EA and Kalo, once known for beauty and love, were now names people whispered in fear. Elders began telling the story to young girls as a warning. They sat under the baobab tree, their voices low and serious. EA's beauty was her pride, but her greed was her downfall. She wanted more than her hands could hold, and it led her to death. Fathers warned their sons, "Do not give your heart to someone who doesn't value it," they said. Kalo's love turned into rage, and that rage destroyed them both. The story of EA and Kalo became a dark folktale. It was passed from mouth to mouth, from mother to daughter, from old men at the corner shop to little boys playing with stones. It was told every time the smell of soup filled the air. And so, Oja moved on. But the memory of what happened did not fade. It became a shadow over the town. A quiet reminder, a lesson never to forget. Moral of the story: greed blinds the heart. Betrayal destroys love, and revenge once born only brings darkness.